We'll get where are okay. Well, dear colleagues, of course I will deliver this afternoon an opening address, and now allow me to simply give some impressions from my activities this spring. You will find that the comprehensive report of my work as President since the last annual session has been distributed. As you know, our Assembly has begun to implement a new set of guidelines for our election observation, and I was able to see this in practice 3 times this spring. After our winter meeting, I served as a special coordinator for the parliamentary elections in Moldova. In late April, I replaced my dear friend Ilka Kanerva to lead the efforts for the second round of the presidential elections in Ukraine. And just last month, I again served in that capacity for the early presidential elections in Kazakhstan. I will report on these elections in greater detail during our closing plenary, but I would like to already note here the good overall cooperation we have enjoyed both with our institutional partners and the authorities of the host countries. We have produced some robust statements which will be used and will be useful as Moldova, Ukraine and Kazakhstan continue their democratization efforts, and which will help guide some of the conversation we'll have with our colleagues in the years to come. Our good cooperation with ODIHR has also illustrated this spring with a conference on parliamentary oversight, which was hosted by the Parliament of Georgia and which several of you attended. We hope to repeat this kind of joint event on a regular basis, and I would like to thank our Armenian colleagues to offering to be the next hosts. We look forward to being in Yerevan for that event. This March, I completed a visit to all OSCE institutions by meeting with the OSCE High Commissioner on National Minorities in The Hague. Our conversation with Ambassador Lamberto Zanier revealed growing difficulties for the High Commissioner to cooperate with parliaments and ensure that High Commissioner's recommendations and guidelines are taken into account when developing national legislation. I therefore committed the PA to more closely engage with our parliaments in order to facilitate High Commissioner's work with a view of easing inter-ethnic tensions across the OSCE region. In The Hague, I also met Hajira Arif, President of the House of Representatives, Ankie Broker-Knoll, then President of the Senate, and of course, esteemed members of the delegation of the Netherlands in the Parliamentary Assembly, to the Parliamentary Assembly. As in most of my visits, discussion touched on major international issues, but we also talked about initiatives aimed at resolving practical issues between opposing OSCE countries. Together, we discussed a very concrete proposal which I have asked our Special Representative on Mediation, Ilka Kanerva, to look into. On the occasion of the Bureau meeting in Copenhagen on April 8, we welcomed Albanian President Ilir Meta with OSCE Secretary General Thomas Greminger. In our exchanges, I noted the importance of overcoming the political differences that have stood in the way of principled discussions and removing obstacles that continue to delay the OSCE budget from being adopted in a timely fashion and prevents OSCE institutions from carrying out their mandates. In a lengthy conversation with President Meta, we also discussed Albanian domestic challenges and political developments. Both Secretary General Montella and I welcomed Albania's commitment to chair the OSCE in 2020, and which we considered as an act of courage, responsibility and generosity. With the chairmanship in sight, we stressed the need for Albanian politicians to promote a positive image through political convergence and compromise we must materialize in the appropriate fora through responsible dialogue and cooperation. And we are really very closely watching all the events, what's happening nowadays in Albania. Throughout this spring, we have also, as I said, closely watching all the developments there, and stood ready to engage our expertise and all our instruments in cooperation and coordination with the OSCE's governmental, state side and institutions. Just last week, we issued, together with Chairperson in Office Lajcak, Secretary General Greminger, myself and Roberto, a statement regretting the political tension and impasse in Albania. We continue to stand ready to help find a way out of the crisis. And I'd like to emphasize that it's a very, let's say, rare and quite a unique event when all the leaders of the OSCE coming up with the statements, and I think it shows real strong unity of our institutions. It's very important to keep and to strengthen multilateralism. Later in April, I met in Minsk with the President of the country, Alexander Lukashenko, to emphasize the importance of close cooperation between Belarus and Parliamentary Assembly, discussed efforts to put an end to armed conflict in eastern Ukraine through the Minsk negotiating process, and address the status of democratic reforms. I also followed up on the need of safeguard fundamental rights and ensure an even playing field ahead of parliamentary elections this fall with Speaker Vladimir Andreychenko, our colleague Boleslav Pirstuk, and representatives from opposition parties and civil society. There I participated in the parliamentary conference of the Silk Road Support Group and noted concerns voiced regarding the growing influence of China in the OSCE area, including during our Copenhagen Bureau meeting, and welcomed the opportunity to encourage greater parliamentary oversight over Belt and Road projects. The following week, I was happy to participate in this year's edition of the Leinsweiler seminar organized by Doris Barnett and German delegation. I would like to thank again Bundestag and the German Foreign Ministry for their continued support to promote dialogue between OSCE participating states. These efforts were echoed by a visit to Baku last month for a conference on regional cooperation and security, where I had an opportunity to speak with parliamentary leaders from Azerbaijan, Germany, and Turkey. In high-level meetings, I also followed up on efforts to advance parliamentary contributions to peace in the South Caucasus by reiterating an invitation for speakers of Azerbaijan and Armenia to meet under our auspices. I plan on traveling to Yerevan at the earliest opportunity, being in Baku before, to conduct high-level meetings to further push this project. In late May, I took part in a study visit to explore the local and global impact of climate change, together with second committee chaired by Nils Sena, rapporteur. Also, Elona Hoja was with us, and the delegation of Norway, led by Siv Mossleth and Vice President Kari Henriksen. Of course, once again, I'd like to extend our thanks and gratitude for great organization and hospitality which we received in Norway, specifically in Svalbard, one of the world's northmost inhabited areas. We witnessed new local realities in high north and considered how climate change poses security risks for the entire OSCE region. This visit was important for us to further understand the concerns emerging from Norway and other Arctic countries, and we see how young people are committed and concerned for their future and how to tackle this problem. In meetings in Oslo and ministers and also with ministers and also with the Speaker of Parliament, we further highlighted the need of Arctic countries to maintain concerted efforts to safeguard the High North as an area of peaceful cooperation, while all OSCE countries must commit to the protection of the nature and biodiversity of the Arctic. In order to support international cooperation and security dialogue in the High North and the alert to OSCE parliamentarians to the threat of climate change, I have appointed Toril Elsheim as Special Representative on Arctic issues, and I look forward to hear her first report later this week. Earlier this year, I have also tasked Vice President Margareta Cederfeld to carry out a report on the investigation of the assassination of Boris Nemtsov. This was done upon the request of several our members and based on a call by our Assembly last year in Berlin. I look forward to hearing from Margareta today and during a side event she will host during the weekend. 2 weeks ago, I visited Cyprus to encourage continued engagement in parliamentary diplomacy to tackle enduring and emerging challenges. I welcome Cyprus' active engagement in our complex agenda, underlining that the work of the delegation led by Irena Charalambidis and our Third Committee Rapporteur, Kyriakos Hadjivani, provides leadership in several areas, including defense of human rights, the fight against corruption, and outreach of partners in the southern Mediterranean and Middle East. I visited the Committee of Missing Persons. This is a very important structure which created by both sides, let's say, in Cyprus, and I was impressed to hear from both Turkish and Greek Cypriots impacted by partition of the island about the willingness of both sides to foster reconciliation. My visit also included a visit to the UN offices in Cyprus, where I heard more about ongoing efforts to create the conditions for a comprehensive and durable settlement of this dispute. There I encouraged closer cooperation with the UN to further reinforce the effectiveness of our multilateral efforts to prevent and overcome conflicts. This echoed other efforts to continue to build and reinforce partnerships with other international and regional organizations. In early June, I addressed the spring session of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly to encourage greater transatlantic and pan-European cooperation in light of the OSCE's upcoming autumn meeting in Marrakesh this October. I discussed in particular with the President Moon ways our two parliamentary assemblies can work together to tackle security challenges in the Mediterranean region. Institutional cooperation will also be a topic of conversation when we host the President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, Liliane Maurer-Pasquer, this weekend. Dear friends, before I conclude this little bit lengthy report, let me wish us success in our work this week. Our annual session represents the culmination of month-long efforts to put our collective concerns, highlight success stories and valuable initiatives, and make concrete recommendations to national governments, our parliaments, and the wider international community. At the last Ministerial Council in Milan, you will have noticed the readiness of delegates to include references to PA's work in several texts, and we appreciate it very much. So that's a very normal. Executive side should take in consideration what parliamentarians are offering. I take, of course, this is an acknowledgement of our increased and deepened cooperation with the OSCE Chairmanship and Secretariat, as well as with ambassadors in Vienna, but also a recognition of the high quality and relevance of our joint work. In that same constructive spirit, we'd like to continue to debate vigorously during this session and promote our recommendations as we look forward to the Bratislava Ministerial Council. Thank you very much. I will now give the floor for the specific comments or questions on my activities as OSCE Parliamentary Assembly President, and there will be an opportunity, of course, for more general debate on current international issues later in this agenda. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to hear your comments or questions. Peter, please, Peter Osuski, Karin Henriksson, Vladimir, Naima, Gerasimov, Nilsa, please, and Mark Richard. Please, Peter.
Yes. Thank you for the word, Mr. President. Dear appreciated colleagues and friends, being here since 1998, with some interruption. I have, as I can say, lived under different OSCE Parliamentary Assembly presidents, and I have to say that Georg is a very active and very good one. We met on different occasions in the elections, different areas. We met in Bratislava in the, I would say, period before Slovakia became the presiding country of the OSCE. And I have to appreciate his activities in a not easy period of his reign. And as my Minister of Foreign Affairs, Lajčák, did a good job in, I would say, building a roof over the financing of our institution, which, as Doris Barnett mentioned, wasn't an easy task. But knowing the situation behind, I have to say that something similar is done for our organization by Mr. Tsereteli. I would say I am happy with his presidency. I am happy, I hope you will also be, with the Slovak presidency. And I wish our organization and all mentioned people good luck for the future.
Thank you very much, dear Peter, for kind words. And Henriksson, please, Kari, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and dear colleagues and friends. I would like to express our gratitude to the President, the Secretary General, and the OSCE staff for the study trip to Svalbard in May. And we are happy for the appointment of Mr. Toril Eidsheim as a special representative on Arctic issues. What we know is that the temperature in Arctic is rising rapidly. This is a true indicator of climate change. The challenges for the Arctic region are geopolitical, environmental, and economic, and also human rights related. They extend across all the dimensions of human security that the OSCE works on. And the Arctic states have a long and well-functioning collaboration in the Arctic Council, now under the chairmanship of Iceland, which we can both learn from and collaborate with. So again, I want to express our thanks to you and the Secretariat, and look forward to have more focus on important Arctic issues, also in the OSCE context. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Kari. And again, thank you for a great organization in Norway. So, Vladimir Georgiev and then Naima Lanchi.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of words. I think it was a good report, and there were a lot of things that were mentioned. There were a lot of things that were not mentioned, but we get regular information through newsletters, through emails. We have many documents in this room and all that. So I would just like to compliment to you, Mr. Chairman, about your activities. I've been in this parliamentary assembly for the last 12 years, so ever since 2006. And it's not overstatement that I've never seen a president of the OSCE who visited as many countries as you have and being present to many events as you have. It needs to be mentioned. You can't say that, but we can, because we are noticing and we are supporting that. So you've been everywhere, and yes, not always back home in our national parliaments, we have the understanding about international presence, international conferences, and all that. And basically, this organization covers almost half of the world. It's not just Europe, but it's North America, it's Central Asia. We have active dialogue with the Mediterranean countries in North Africa. So basically it's half of the world. So it's not easy even physically to cover all that. And the good thing is that we have fruitful events. I think last year's Parliamentary Assembly in Berlin was a success. It was a great event. The whole venue, you know, in the Bundestag was really good. Also, this Luxembourg event is very promising. So just to say these things. One more footnote. Thank you for your engagement and for the whole organization and many other delegations about election observations. I think we have a good success in that. We had a number of, how to say, quote, quote, big elections, and they were well covered by the OSCE. There was a good OSCE delegation during the Macedonian presidential elections this year, and it's a thing that our body and our organizations is getting more and more specialized. So let's do more on that, and we can work, all of us, on that together. We have a growing portfolio, and to meet that growing demand and growing portfolio, we need more and more people active and engaged. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned, thank you very much for pointing out many things. Of course, I apologize for my lengthy report, but there are facts I could not hide. So there are some things that we didn't put in this, but as you said, we are many tools to inform members what President, Leadership, Secretary General, Treasurer, others, Vice Presidents are doing. And according election observation, I'd like to also thank Sir Marborn for a good leadership and a secretariat during election observation in Macedonia. Thank you very much. Now, Naima Landry, Nils Asena, and then Gerasimov and Mark Pritchard. Then I think we will then sum up.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to express our gratitude to you for your work as President of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, also to the Secretariat. You are, as a President of the Assembly, you have shown a strong guidance in the Assembly, but also in the Standing Committee. And for the last year and a half, we have known you also as a very active president, as shown also in the report. You have been representing the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly at different occasions in different countries. Also, you have done a lot of field visits. Thank you also for motivating not only the staff of OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, but also the chairpersons and rapporteurs of the different committees and ad hoc working groups. I think it's very important. And finally, I think also, and we would also, everything would agree with me, I think, for the good work you did, also with the good cooperation with the OSCE-related bodies, such as ODIHR, but also with a lot of external organizations. And I wish you a lot of success. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for leadership and Migration Committee with all our colleagues there. Nils Asena, and then Artur Gerasimov.
Thank you very much, dear President, dear distinguished colleagues. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Tsereteli for very active work as a President of PA and also the Secretariat. I think both your work and also the media strategy flag up all the PA in many occasions. And I want to stress also the strict relationship between the PA and the Thomas Kreminger, Secretary General, and OSCE governmental side. I think that's an important point because now we have a big open window between the PA and the OSCE. And I must stress also, as a chair of the second committee, I dedicated some of last year's to many topics, including greening economies, decarbonation of economies, electrification of energy use, and climate change. And in this particular case, climate change, we had big support of our president and a big step with a fantastic trip to study the Arctic conditions, and I want to thank also to Norwegian organization, fantastic organization also, and stress the importance of this issue be present in all committees. I think we all know and we all realize that the planet is getting warmer, wetter, wilder, and we need definitely to find a path, a common path, to work together on this issue. This is not specific topic on second dimension, because this issue, it will reflect directly on the other two, on the first dimension, on security level, and definitely on human area also. So I think we stressed it very well, and the President put all his energy on this issue also, and I'll thank you for that and for all the climate diplomacy that is really necessary also. Thank you.
Thank you. Climate diplomacy, it's really needed. Thank you very much, Nilsa. And now Artur Gerasimov. And then last speaker will be for the session, Mark Pritchard. Please, Artur, and then Mark. And
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
See any other.
First of all, I want to say thank you and join my colleagues for your, let's say, active activities, because what we see during the last years, that the visibility and the leadership of the Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE became much more visible and effective. And also, I want to say special thank you for your visit to the front line in Ukraine, because you, Andreas Notella, all the other members of the delegations remember that we visited it during the shellings, and it was not safe. And also, I want to mention that during the last years, we see that activity of the committees of the Assembly towards Ukraine became much more let's say active, especially third committee chaired by our Swiss colleagues. So thank you very much for these things, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Arthur. You are right. So it was in the beginning of this mandate in Berlin. I told you it was a collective wish to prioritize Ukraine, and if you count how many times not only President but also our third committee and some other our leaders been in Ukraine, it really makes really sense, and thank you very much for supporting our activities there, especially at the front line, as you mentioned. And now Mark Pritchard, our special representative on Balkans and the head of British delegation. Please, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may also, I'd like to put on record my thanks to the Secretary General. I wasn't able to do that earlier. My congratulations on behalf of the UK delegation for his re-election. And you mentioned Special Representative for South East Europe, and clearly that's a busy role, but I couldn't do it without the excellent support of Ambassador Tsereteli and Francesco and other members of the OSCE headquarters staff, both in Copenhagen and Vienna. So I'd like to put on record my thanks at this point. Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to say that the report is first class. It's an excellent annual report, and there has been a lot of travel, but it's been travel with purpose. And it was Dr. David Livingstone, a famous English explorer, who said, if you travel with purpose. And so you've certainly traveled with purpose, and I think that's probably a good motto for us all as parliamentarians with busy schedules. But I'd like to thank you, sir, most of all for your decisive leadership, your attention to detail, your wisdom, your accessibility, but perhaps most of all, your good humour. Because just speaking personally, I don't think any of us can survive in politics without some good humour, despite the fact that we are often discussing serious subjects. So in support, again, of your presidency, your hard work and industry, I recognise and salute. And on behalf of the UK delegation, thank you, sir, for what you do.
Thank you very much. I don't know what to say, because there were words which I appreciate very much and very much inspired. Thank you again, because what I did as a president last year, or even a little bit maybe before, when I became acting president for a few months, I did it only with the great support of all of you. We have opponents here, of course. There are colleagues we couldn't disagree with, never could agree on certain points, but we try to promote, and myself, as the president of this organization, promote very constructive and ever more friendly relations. And I'm very much thankful to all of you, and of course, Secretariat, who also fostering that, let's say, phenomenon and value in our Assembly. Thank you very much again, and then we will, let's say, continue this discussion if there are any other points on international issues, and we have already the speakers for next session. Thanks a lot. Now, report of newly re-elected Secretary General.